Hi everyone, welcome to Habitat Magazine. My name is Destiny Chiblankson, and today we have with us architect Obinna. How are you today, sir?
Good.
How do you feel to be here?
Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Architect Obinna Uta, architect practicing here in Nigeria, graduated from Imo State University, now Abia State University, when they were still affiliated with the University of Nebraska School of Architecture in Lincoln, Nebraska. Left for US after youth service and worked in various firms from Leo Idali to Mayton, and finally ended up with a KGM architect in Norcross in Georgia. He was with the firm for about 15 years and returned to Nigeria in 2011. He was invited to STO International Architect in Houston before leaving the US for Nigeria. The firm does both commercial and residential projects, started with an office in Calabar before eventually settling in Lagos. So hello, Architect Obinna.
Hello.
How are you doing once again?
Fantastic.
Thank you for making time to speak with us. Would you like to share your story?
Okay, my story.
Yeah.
Starting from where do you want to hear from?
Okay, first of all, we would like to know what inspired you to become an architect.
For my case, it's pretty easy. I come from an architect, a family of architects, so it was easy. It was just the direction to go. I think we have probably about 10 or 11 architects in the family. So from earlier on, I knew I just had to do architecture. My closest uncle was an architect. I played with Lego when I was still 4 or 5. So it was the only direction. I didn't have any other options like some people had. It just had to be architecture. So.
Yeah, how does that vision evolve with time?
Well, architecture is, I think it's one of those professions where I feel like it allows you to be able to go into different stuff. So I think it's evolved in the sense that I find myself doing a whole lot of stuff that's not related to architecture, but still in a way connected to architecture. It takes you to real estate, it takes you to interior design, so many aspects of life. I think that architecture and design is really involved in everything we do in life.
So you're saying what inspired the journey of becoming an architect is, people from behind, your father, your uncle, growing up, the people you were around.
Yeah, so that's what inspired that direction. But as I got into the profession, I was inspired by just design. They need to see things done right. I was always observing. I would say architecture for me is more psychology. I was always observing why people do things, So I sit at the airport and I'm imagining why are more people making a left turn than right turn. And I'm trying to figure out what it is about that space that's making people do what they do. In every space, I do that in every space.
Okay, that's great. So how would you describe your design philosophy?
Design philosophy, that's a tough one. You like design philosophy? I would say that first of all, it's grounded in functionality. So I think that I have a knack for things to be functional.
Okay.
And then I just take functionality and then package it with lovely aesthetics. But it starts with that it's functional. It works. And again, what functionality means for me is that it works for that particular use and that particular person. So a house for me might not be the same thing as a house for you. So the functionality might vary. But it starts from functionality and then it's packaged with aesthetics. Yes, I like the wow effect. And the building should inspire somebody. It should lift your spirit.
So in 2 words, you're saying functionality and aesthetics.
And aesthetics.
Great. Okay, so what in your opinion does great architecture today mean to you?
Great architecture is one that has a balance of context. So the architecture is in the context and it's designed into that context. In that sense, I mean, you are designing in Nigeria. Somehow it has to relate to Nigeria. Yeah. So something you can plug something out of Barcelona and then plug it into Korea. So I think it's something that has a balance of context. It's designed for the region where it is. It balances functionality. And again, when you do context, it means that you're covered weather, climate, and all of that because you're designing to Lagos or to this context. So to me, great architecture is one that is able to balance functionality, context, and then aesthetics. So that's great architecture to me.
Yeah. So, are there any three architects or designers that like you just like their work?
I was, having been abroad for a long time. Most of my architects that I like would be in the U.S. But unlike some people who like one particular famous architect like Foster or all of that, I'm more inclined to like firms.
Okay.
Like Perkins and Will. I don't like one particular individual.
Okay.
I like firms that have come together and have built a great body of work. So I'm not one of these architects that is drawn to one star architect.
Okay.
No, it's more like a firm thing. So I like Perkins and Will out of the US. In Nigeria, I like Baron Architecture. I think they've done amazing work and they continue to do amazing work. In West Africa, there's a firm called Kofi and Diabated, and I think they have done amazing work too. So those three firms covers US, Nigeria, and West Africa.
Okay, so bringing it into Nigeria, is there any architect you like to work with, like, have a collaboration?
It will still be probably, I would say probably Baron.
Baron.
Yeah, Baron Architecture. I've done collaboration with some other architects, but yeah, it will still be that. Maybe I'm biased because I know him personally, and I think in architecture you have to have similar sensibility somehow to be able to do collaboration. So if one architect is all about the aesthetics and doesn't care about it, that functionality, it'd be difficult to get collaboration. So I'm saying that in the light of the fact that yes, I think we have similar sensibilities.
So is there a project you've worked on that best represents your approach to architecture?
I would say the film house at IMAX.
The film house at
IMAX here in Lekki. And I would say that because it combines different stuff. It combines the cinema aspect is one aspect, but you also have to deal with the restaurant, you have to deal with the private cinema spaces, you have to deal with the lobby. So I would say the film house, IMAX, it has all of that. And that was the first time we're doing an IMAX in Nigeria or West Africa. So it's something I've never done before. And so having to have the guys from IMAX come from Canada and tell us, oh, the acoustics is not enough. It has a little bit of everything. It has a lot of engineering, acoustics. It has a little bit of how people behave in a space. It has a little bit of the Nigerian culture where we have something I call VIP, So it has almost everything. You have to deal with that VIP culture because you have the private cinema. How do you get those people in the VIP to go into their private cinema with us in the rest of the public? So IMAX has a little bit of everything.
IMAX it is.
Yes.
Right. So how do you see architecture shaping the way people live, work, and interact in the next decade?
I don't think it's changing. I think it's just that we've not caught up in Nigeria with the way architecture should be. But hopefully, my hope is that in Nigeria that we will begin to take not just architecture but design a little more seriously. So instead of just doing things to go along with the masses, you are designing spaces for your office for the way you function. I just hope that people are more intentional about designing spaces for the way they live. My space is designed for exactly how I live.
Right.
And I think that when we all do that, your staff's productivity will be higher. Everything changes when we intentionally design spaces for. So if, for instance, you have an office, you need to ask yourself, should you have a gym in the office? Should you have a place for mothers or your staff that are mothering, babies, to have the place to keep their babies? So just being a little more intentional about everything in design.
Yeah.
How do you interact? Do you need a room for podcasts in the way we're going in your office? So those are the ways I think that design changes. That we are more intentional about what we want, and then just not do like John says, or just give me a house like that house down the road. Let it be something that you want.
So it still boils down to functionality.
Yeah, functionalize and your own space for what you do.
So what would your dream project be?
My dream project would be a stadium. My dream project would be something like a stadium, a football stadium, or because I think it would take engineering, which will take engineering to the limits, So you are driving structural engineering, you're able to do anything as an architect. You can extend your design to any limit you want, and you still do the functionality thing. But stadium allows you to add a certain kind of flair that you might not easily add in a building. So, and a high rise doesn't give you that. Yeah, high rise is just a simple. But a stadium allows you to do something.
You need to expect outside.
Yeah. And you can do something really unique. You can play with lights. You can play with natural lights. You can play with artificial lights. You can think about how does a stadium look at night when there is no sports facility. Right. So it involves everything. So yeah, that would be a dream project to do a stadium.
So what trend in residential or luxury living are you currently excited about?
Residential. I like the idea that a lot of high rises are going up in Nigeria. I like the idea that we're doing a lot of not just flats or apartments in these high rises, but in some of these high rises you have 2-unit loft spaces. So you come to a high rise and you get to a certain level and somebody's living on 3 floors.
Yeah.
So I think that's good. I like the idea of bench floors. I like the idea that we're going vertical in Nigeria. The other trend I like is the fact that most people are now considering basements, things that in the past it wasn't even, thought about. So I think that the sooner that we get to this level where we're designing things that match what we're doing. So I remember years ago when I came back to Nigeria, I saw a hotel somewhere in VI and I was looking at the parking for the hotel and I could count maybe 13 parking spots. So those are the kind of stuff that is changing. Now people are designing, well, I have 50 units, so I need this number of parking spots in the basement. So we're coming in line with what architecture should be and design should be.
You're talking about design, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you could redesign one aspect of our city or housing, what would that be?
I still think that we don't have, what I would do is more city planning and urban planning. I think that we're just living our lives and we're supposed to be this amazing country with all this money and all of that stuff. But we don't have livable city. Nobody has come up and said, oh, let's design Lekki, this one. Or any part of Lagos. Let's really design the city center to have green park and places like UK, people are doing that all the time. You come in and somebody's redesigning this aspect of the town or somebody's designing. We don't do that. You don't have bicycle routes. You don't have nothing. We're just building and as we're going, everybody doing their thing. So it'd be nice to every once in a while you go into a city and Benin is doing a new redevelopment of the city that includes green parks and bicycle routes and all of that stuff. So, then we know we're building livable cities. Right now, I think that we're just building high rises and lovely places, and we all end up staying in our houses and not going out. My kids can't go anywhere. There's nothing. They just stay at home.
What advice would you give young architects?
My advice would be to focus on the foundational aspects like this. I think that these days everybody is going to the effigy, the aesthetics, what looks good, but they are missing the foundation. And I think that the foundation of architecture starts with one, you read those books, go and read those classic books in architecture that matters. And those books tells you about proportions, the Greeks, the Romans. So I just think that for the young architects, they need to have that foundation in place. And that foundation in place allows you, there's a great book called Pattern Language. And I'm always surprised that almost all the young architects in Nigeria have never read the book, The Pattern Language. So my advice is to go back, read those classics, get the foundation right, understand building codes. So in the whole world, there might be 200 building codes, but you talk to young architects and they don't even know 20 building codes. So do those basic things and all the aesthetic things will be there. It's your gift, it will just get better. But to have that and you don't have this basic foundation, that's what I think is missing. So my advice is go back to the basics, have a good foundation.
All right. So go back to the basics and have good foundation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Architect Obinna. It was very lovely hearing from you.
You're welcome.
Right. And thank you to everyone who stayed in to listen. Meet us next time on habitatmagazineag.com.